Imagine yourself walking into school one day, but just a few hours later, you find yourself in prison. And it wasn't because you hurt someone or damaged property or even used drugs. It was only because you didn't do your homework last night. And now you're here. You're behind bars. It's ridiculous. For over 92,000 students in the United States, this isn't just a story. It's their real life. Donatarian Bruce, a student at Olive Branch High School, was suspended for 5 months, most of the school year, after being accused of being a gang member by school administrators. The school's proof? He flashed gang signs in a picture with classmates. The only problem was, his supposed gang signs was him putting up his number on the school's football team, his thumb, forefinger, and middle finger as the number 3. This issue is known as the school-to-prison pipeline, when children are funneled out of public schools and into juvie. The school-to-prison pipeline specifically targets minorities with unfair disciplinary measures against these students. In fact, people of color, those with disabilities, and the LGBTQ community are 3 times more likely to face disciplinary measures in schools for the same crimes committed by other students. These arrests are clearly skewed towards people of color, with 53% of student suspensions in schools are Black students and 35% are Latinx students. The school-to-prison pipeline has a huge impact, far beyond just childhood. Many students who enter the justice system through the school-to-prison pipeline face barriers to re-enter schools and can be pushed out of the system permanently. Students suspended or expelled are nearly 3 times more likely to be in contact with the juvenile justice system the following year. Once suspended or expelled, data shows that students are less likely to complete high school and are more than twice as likely to be arrested while on forced leave from school. Even if students are released, they are caught in a web of laws and regulations that make it difficult to secure jobs, education, housing, and public assistance. Christine Polk, a 13-year-old with autism, attended the Magnolia School for Special Education students. After Christine ran away from the school twice in one day, a school resource officer placed the girl in handcuffs, claiming she lashed out when he grabbed her arm and wound up dragging her to a county detention facility. She ended up spending the night in jail, detained for 24 hours. When the police arrived at Creekside Elementary School, they found Celicia Johnson crying and flailing on the floor of her principal's office. The principal said she was inconsolable, had thrown various items, and had damaged school property during a tantrum. Celicia was handcuffed and transported to a police station. She was 6 years old. This school-to-prison pipeline has been plaguing education systems in America since its start. The biggest perpetuator? Zero-tolerance policies in schools. Zero-tolerance policies outline certain offenses along with their assigned punishments, but many of these policies are flawed. With harsh punishments for undeserving crimes, zero-tolerance policies in schools specifically attack certain groups of students. These practices became common following a trend in school shootings across the United States in the 1990s. Lawmakers and educators believed that they would help to ensure safety on school campuses. However, over a 4-year period, suspensions increased by 51%, and expulsions increased by nearly 32 times after zero-tolerance policies were implemented in Chicago schools. The presence of police or school resource officers in schools also contribute to the school-to-prison pipeline. Though their intended purpose is to protect students and ensure safety on school campuses, in many instances, the police handling of disciplinary issues escalates minor, non-violent infractions into violent criminal incidents that have negative impacts on students. In fact, New York City public schools currently have over 5,200 school resource officers, including 200 uniformed police officers. This means that schools in New York City employ more cops than school counselors. When schools have law enforcement on site, students are more likely to be arrested by police instead of discipline being handled by school officials. This leads to more kids being funneled into the juvenile justice system. How many of you have complained about school before? The focus on standardized tests, lack of real-world skills being taught. I mean, that's why we're at TKS, right? We want a better form of education than what we have at our own schools. But all of those concerns are insignificant when you line it up with what other students face in their experiences. Some don't even get the opportunity to learn basic math, science, and English. We all have this privilege that we take for granted when many people are forced out of the schools that we complain about. The school to prison pipeline has far reaching impacts on discrimination and inequality. Kids as small as 3 years old have already faced systemic racism at such a young age and find themselves on a path directly towards the criminal justice system. Advocating for this change is extremely important. We've seen the power of the people, especially through the Black Lives Matter protests, and we know what we can accomplish together. I recently attended an Erase Racism conference for my school, with many students aspiring to fight against racism, but not knowing exactly what to do. By the end of the conference, all the students had one conclusion in mind. In order to help stop systemic racism, one of the most important things you can do is create inclusive curriculums that talk about these subjects. These sensitive issues aren't discussed, and is why they go unnoticed except when people seek them out themselves. Yes, school curriculums are missing important knowledge about tech and science, but knowledge about society and discrimination are equally important to learn about and are just as undertaught. The school to prison pipeline is not unique in the harm it causes to minority groups. It represents far larger forces of oppression that manifests in the broader predatory criminal justice system and police brutality. These are issues we've seen unfold in America this past year, and to tackle these issues requires the same diligent learning and training as do tech issues. Don't brush it aside. Educate yourself about them. Read what top advocates and educators are saying. Work on your own projects to prepare yourself to make an impact. Because these ideas matter. If you want to change the world through tech and science, you first need to be able to understand society itself and its flaws. The problems that have been plaguing society for centuries need to be fixed before future advancements can truly make an impact. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samson, organizer of TKS Community Talks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out our channel for more insightful and inspiring talks from a community of young people training to change the world.